I will talk about the Paseo project. The Paseo project is a project funded by the European Commission, by DG Sanco. And the interest of DG Sanco is not so much in research, but its interest is to be of added value for policy development in EU countries. So if I now talk also about a partnership between research, academia and policy, the primary goal of this kind of project is policy development, and the research that comes with the policy development has to be supportive for this issue. So that's the idea of DG Sanco. I think this project also touches upon a few of the issues, hot topics that has been discussed during this conference. It's physical activity promotion for older persons, older people, but it's also on capacity building related to different organizations and policy actors in the field. It's on intersectoral collaboration in particular, and how to create such an intersectoral collaboration. And it's also, as I already said, on knowledge translation from research and the cooperation and the alliance building between research and policy. So it's a quite huge project covering almost all of the European region in terms of the partners involved in the project, about countries from southern, northern, and also from Central Eastern Europe. The idea in terms of building policy capacities in Paseo is related, on the one hand, to developing inner organizational capacities and also related to intersectoral capacity building, inter-organizational development. And this is the main focus of my presentation here: how to develop this kind of alliance, how to develop inter-organizational capacities, and what could be the role of research and science to support such a development. So it's a kind of an academia-driven approach to policy development. So how to build capacities using the approach that we applied in the Paseo project. Actually, one could divide four different phases. The first phase is related to building partnership between a strong political partner and the research partner. The issue here is team building. The next step then is to expand this kind of partnership, get other organizations involved, build an alliance, and then the third phase is related to the key module of this process that we call cooperative planning. So how could these alliances work together to develop a common vision, and at the end to develop a common catalogue of action to be implemented? And finally, it's of course also on implementation. So it's not just talk, it's not just vision, it's not just planning, cooperative planning, it's also on implementing things, and it's on results, to achieve common results. So if we go through these four phases very quickly now, in each of the participating countries of the Paseo project, in the first phase, a scientific partner teamed up with a strong political partner, like a ministry or a national sport federation. And then within this phase, the first phase of knowledge exchange for the researchers, this is related to getting more insight in the political landscape in their region or in their nation. And from the knowledge that comes from research is this concept of knowledge, of capacity building. This is a concept that at this point in time is new for policymakers. In terms of capacity building, in the first phase, the PASEO project helps to fulfill some of the obligations of policymakers with regard to health promotion. And for researchers, it's in terms of capacity building, it's new contexts that they find, and also to get a political credibility for the project. And the second phase, as I already mentioned, is mainly related to alliance building, getting more organization involved from different sectors, and at the same time it's also a phase of assessing policy capacities in participating organizations that we did with qualitative interviews. So we had a pre-situation with regard to capacities, and we did also a post-test after the project, so we could also measure how we developed and created and sustained additional capacities, policy capacities. And you see, we used a kind of a matrix in participating countries involving different sectors, different levels of governments, governmental organizations, NGOs, so to get as different organizations and different sectors involved. That's just an example that we are using here. And in this second phase, the alliance building, it's on the one hand for policymakers, it's from their side, it's information on policy capacities of their organizations that we got this information as researchers, and with regard to capacity building, it's now again more contacts, more insights into the policy field for the researchers, but also for the policymakers. Again, it's very much related that research support their obligations with regard to policy development in this particular area. The third phase, as I said, is the core module. It's a process of cooperative planning where we have now about 20 years of experience to moderate these kind of processes for intersectoral policy development. It's a very successful method and methodology that we developed here. It starts with a very open brainstorming of ideas, and then it's on setting priorities, and at the end it's very important that it ends with concrete measures where you define clear responsibilities and other obligations so that you prepare the implementation of these kind of catalogs of actions. So in terms of knowledge exchange in this phase, from researchers, the main task is related to the moderation of the planning process. That's why we also call it an academia-driven approach to intersectoral partnership and policy development. And from policymakers, it's also on networking, it's also on for the researchers, you get more information about the relationship between participating organizations and so on. And with regard to capacity building, this is a crucial phase to develop inter-organizational links and cooperation, but also to develop inner-organizational goals, to specify goals, and to work on resource allocation with regard to this topic, and to also improve other capacities within the organization. So it's on both sides, inner organizational development and inter-organizational development. And finally, the implementation phase of the PASEO project. Here, the main responsibilities for implementation is related to the policy organizations involved, and the main task of the research partners was related to monitoring the implementation and at the end to monitor the building of capacities that took place in the project. Okay, so with regard to knowledge exchange in this phase, as I said, the main task the main information that comes from researchers is on the implementation process, how they monitor it as a more external partner, and from the policymakers, it's the information on the real what is going on in implementation process, and also on the sustainability of the measures that has been implemented. So, as I said in the beginning of my talk, the main interest of DG Sanco in funding these kind of projects is there any impact that they can have added value for policy development in EU countries? So at the end we have to measure this project in terms of success or failure against this goal of the proposal. And as you can see, Paseo project was able to develop alliances in all 15 participating countries on this issue of promoting physical activity for older persons. And more than 130 organizations were involved in these, or are involved in these alliances now. Various ministries are involved, and these alliances also in many participating countries are linked to national physical action plans. And in all the participating countries, catalogues of actions has been developed, and more than 100 specific measures at least has been developed and partly has already been implemented. So you see a great diversity of alliances. This is also very interesting because this is a common approach that we used with these 4 phases, but the outcome very much also reflects the context of the participating country. For example, in Lithuania, as you will see, it's the first HEPA alliance on this general issue of promoting health-enhancing physical activity in the country. It's not specifically on older persons, because here the starting point was to have such an alliance at all. In other countries, like in Finland or in the Netherlands, where the HEPA movement is already much more developed and organized, here it's a subsection of this already existing alliance, now focusing particularly on older persons. So you see, this is now the example of Lithuania, and you can see that this alliance built by the Paseo project is now playing a crucial role in developing a national policy strategy like the plan that we just heard for France, for Lithuania. And in Finland also it's a comprehensive action plan that are now comes out of the Paseo project and now is jointly published by the sport and social care sector. And also in Belgium, there is this kind of a close alliance that has been developed with the Paseo project between the Ministry of Sport and the Ministry of Health. So to conclude, we have the Paseo project, I think, is one of the projects that really fulfilled the vision of DG Sanco and the idea of their policy to be of added value for national policy developments in the area of health promotion in participating countries. And here you can find more information on the project, and also my colleagues here, especially Peter Gelius, who was the coordinator of the Paseo project, also could give you more information on it during the days that are coming now. So thank you very much for your attention.